exit like at
Exit,
least
exit your
every.
bad tabs. We're live. Back with another episode of your wildest fantasy football show. Do you still have to exit your tabs?
No, I did that.
Are they bad tabs?
No, I was just watching YouTube and stuff, and
Just
so
unnecessary tabs.
yeah, this laptop's from 1904, so anything on here just slows it down immensely.
It seems like it might be a bit outdated. We could probably get you an upgrade somehow, someway.
I mean, someday I might, if one falls off the back of a truck and it ends up in my, apartment, or
You should just drive behind a lot of those laptop trucks that you see
I
around.
think I should.
I'll follow this guy for a block, see if one falls off the back.
Yeah. What's the worst that happens, really?
Nothing much. A lot of just bad things happened this weekend for a lot of good teams. I talked about last week how it felt like we were kind of setting ourselves up, and anybody who talks about football sets themselves up for failure on a weekly basis
Right.
because everything that we don't expect to happen happens. And there's really just no point to opening up our mouths and explaining it besides the entertainment value that it brings, not any insight that we bring. And I think that this week just further solidifies this. The only overall football conclusion I have after this week is that I think all the teams that are good or were good are now bad, and all the teams that were bad may potentially now be good.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you. Like, holy cow, these games were brutal, to say the least.
And before we get into all the games, we got to get the second take extra nice and Cody's haircut. Unless you're talking about mine, then I appreciate that as well. But without further ado, let's get into these games. First on the docket is Atlanta over New Orleans. Younghoe Koo has just been knocking in game winners pretty consistently this year. Also, I thought of a fantasy thing last night. I was like, you should probably get extra points for game winners. I don't think anybody does that, but that seems like something that should potentially be on the table for scoring options.
I feel like that only really applies to kickers, though.
Well,
so
yeah.
that's like, I don't know. Because, like,
spice up the kickers a little bit.
I mean, they already get, kickers, I don't know. Like, you get, oh, God, that is louder than an earthquake. Holy. Don't you get like you get a free point for an extra point, and then you get what, 3 points for a field goal?
I think you add like 2 on for a game winner. Seems fair to me.
I don't know.
But in this game, we're not going to talk about Younghoe Koo. We're going to talk about Mike Davis. What is Mike Davis? And no, that is not an answer to a Jeopardy question. That is the question that I am posing to you, Toady, today. He was 9 for 13 on the ground, caught 1 pass for 5 yards for a total of 2.8 points, has less than 3 points in full point PPR in 2 out of his last 3 games.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, had 10 points in the 5 games before the Falcons bye week.
Right.
What do you think of Mike Davis as someone to have on your team? I imagine you're not relying on him at this point, but he might be your RB2. He might be in that consideration.
Yeah, Mike Davis is, he's hit 2 rough games. That's really all he's hit for you. 10 points on a weekly basis from an RB2 that you got as late as you got Mike Davis, I think is well worth it. Mike Davis was going like the 6th, 7th, 8th round, something like that. Like he was going
in. He went in the 5th round of the draft that I'm looking at now. That's probably not a good example. Let me pull it up. You can keep explaining your point, though.
Oh, I don't know. Like I feel like he went late in a couple of my rounds, like midway through. So I feel like where you got him, you're fine. But yeah, Cordell Patterson kind of took the reins over as the running back that you want from that team. Just been able to like put up a tear so far this year. But they split the bat. Like they each had 33 downs this game, 56% of the snaps they both handled and were out there for. So I'm not worried about Mike Davis. Like you just like he's gonna potentially get you 10 points a week. I mean, he has 2 weeks that he hasn't, and I think you're okay from where you got him.
Mike Davis was going as running back 26,
right?
Around pick 74 in drafts. So that's going to be like what, sixth round. So
that's kind of
is. Yeah. I mean, he's obviously not what you drafted, because when you drafted him, you said who else is there, and the answer to that, if someone was to say that, it would be what is Cordell Patterson if you were on Jeopardy. But we are not on Jeopardy. I cannot make that clear enough.
Are you sure?
So it's Cordell Patterson's team.
Like, I mean, it's Cordell Patterson's. If you're looking for a running back that you want, it's Patterson's team. But Patterson, I think, is just much more of he's the big play guy. I think Mike Davis is there for real football. He runs the ball for them. He doesn't really catch too much. And Cordell Patterson kind of comes in, runs it a few times, and catches just some bombs and makes magic happen out on the field. So I'm not panicking on Mike Davis. I think he's going to bounce back to get me 10 points every week like he has been for 6 out of the 8 games he's played so far this year or whatever. So I'm
not worried about it being the downfall of him. I think while it is Patterson's team, it is all like there's also a role for Mike Davis very clearly, and he's getting touches. It's not that. He's also getting snaps. This was the lowest snap count of the season so far, but it was 56%. So over 50% of the snaps. He's been over 60% in every other game of the year. I'm worried if I'm relying on him in my starting lineup. Like, I don't want to have to start him every week. Right. But say if I have like a God squad or like a really good team, and my weakness is Mike Davis as my RB2, right. Like if that's the sacrifice you have to make to potentially say you wanted to trade another running back to like really fill every other spot on your team, and the only problem would be relying on Mike Davis, like I think that's okay. As long as you're expecting him to give you like 7 to 10 points a week.
Right.
And he's perfect bye week running back. Like if you're in trouble and need a bye week guy, I think he's a great fill-in option for that as well.
Right. I mean, yeah, he's got double digits 6 out of 8 weeks that he's played. So the trend is that he will be okay. But yeah, the last, 2 out of 3 weeks, he hasn't looked hot. So
he was going up against New Orleans too. So
exactly. Not an easy run defense.
Too much from that. Anything else you want to talk about in this game?
I just had a question. I said, who is Zacchaeus or Zacchaeus or Zach
Zacchaeus or Zacchaeus?
Yeah, him. I don't know how to say his name, but holy cow.
He had a couple touchdowns that probably inflated his day a little bit. But.
It inflated his day, but I was like, why are we throwing it to this guy? That was like my one question watching the game was like, why is he getting the targets right now? So
he actually, in the grand scheme of things, didn't get a ton of targets. I mean, he got 3 targets and he made the most of them, as we like to say on the show. He had 3 for 58 and 2 touchdowns for a total of 20.8 fantasy points.
Right.
So he wasn't like the volume option in this offense. No. A lot more of that went to Russell Gage underneath. But he's definitely someone who I think caught the eye. Do you think it matters? Are you picking up whatever you would choose to call him?
No, I was just wondering if you had any extravagant takes on him.
No,
I'm not jumping the gun on him. I mean, yeah, he got 2 touchdowns, which got him 12 points out of his whatever he ended up getting, which wasn't magical. I was just like wondering if you were gonna overreact or underreact to it. And yeah, you have about the same take of he got 3 passes on the day. Good job, him.
Yeah, not. I mean, it is awesome for him. I'm happy
Right.
for him.
I mean,
As a big Zacchaeus guy my whole life,
mhm.
it's great to see him have a performance like this. But in fantasy, I cannot say that it matters all too much.
No,
Moving
not.
on to Cleveland at Cincinnati. Cleveland coming out of this game just rocking Cincinnati. First thing I want to talk about on the Cincinnati side is a thing that's frustrating to me because one of the things that I've went on a limb about so far this year is that Joe Mixon is an RB2. And when I said that take, a lot of it was because he was pretty touchdown dependent because of his lack of passing game usage. Since then, he has had back-to-back games with 4 catches and 45 yards. And as long as he can keep that passing game usage, which hasn't been consistent outside of these last 2 weeks, I would say it's a pretty fair thing to say. I mean, he had a stretch from week 2 to week 5 where he had 1 catch. But in the 4 games that he has 4 or more catches, he is averaging 26.1 fantasy points, and doesn't have less than 25 in any of those games. So if he can keep the passing volume, I mean, he's definitely in the RB1 consideration.
Now, since we did just talk about Zacchaeus over here, who had 2 touchdowns in his game, which drastically inflated his numbers, are we not taking into account the fact that Joe Mixon has 4 touchdowns in the past 2 games?
I think we are.
One through the air.
But it's also like,
I mean, so he had 1, 2, 3, 4. He had 5 touchdowns through 7 weeks on the ground through the air, and now he's almost tied that in 2 games. So I think, I mean,
I'm not saying that he's
right. I think
the best of the best, but I think he's going to play into like 5 to 12 range if he can keep the passing volume.
I mean, the passing volume he would get 9.6 points this week plus 6, he'd get 15 points, 14 points. And minus those 2 touchdowns, he's at 16 points. I mean, 16 points is where I kind of expect him to be. I don't think he's going to hit. I mean, in watching the game, I watched the Cleveland game pretty closely just because newly loved Browns fan here, and also wanted to see how they looked without Odell. But I mean, Higgins, Chase, like could not catch the ball to save their life, and like Joe would throw it to them, and they would like get it, and then like just not want to catch it anymore. So be like, and then drop it. So like watching the game, I mean, even Uzma was not looking spectacular out there. I was kind of high on him. T. Boyd lost faith in him completely, but like the guys you kind of expected to play well didn't. And so I think that's where Mixon got his volume from this game. And then last game was against the Jets. So like kind of enough said about the Jets. We rag on them all the time. That's just kind of why I'm not buying the hype that he's going to stay in RB1 all year.
So we flip-flopped.
I didn't say Mixon was an RB1.
You said that you thought he was going to end up in the like.
I said he could end up around that range. I said he has. We agreed he was the best, one of the best RB2s with the RB1 upside that there was. That's what we agreed on. But I never said he was going to finish as an RB1.
I thought it was like in the 10 to 12 range is what we were hearing. I thought he was going to finish a little bit lower. If he can keep catching 4 balls a game, I think that he ends up in the middle to back end RB1 range. Is he going to? I don't feel confident one way or the other because we've seen this stretch where he's doing it and putting up monster numbers. And then we've seen a 5-week stretch or a 4-week stretch where he just had one catch. So like it's.
But are we buying it though? Because the first week 1, he ran it 29 times for 127 yards, and yeah, he got the 4 catches or 5 targets, whatever. But he had a touchdown. But he had 127 yards. The next time he did it was against Detroit, where he ran 18 times for 94 yards, caught it, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 59 yards, and a touchdown. And then these past 2 games, obviously he's got the 5 targets, but he's also had 2 touchdowns each of those games. I guess he always gets volume. Like he doesn't have a single digit rushing week yet. It's just the passing volume. Like, yeah, I guess when he does good, they also give him the ball through the passing game. But like, it was against Minnesota's pass D, Detroit, New Jersey, and then Cleveland. Cleveland, I think, is the one I respect the most, just because their defense was good, but their defense was not stopping the pass. It was just the wide receivers weren't catching anything yesterday. So like, I like Mixon. I think he has the best possibility to finish as an RB1, as an RB2. But I don't know if I'm like buying the hype that he's going to finish as a number 4 running back on the year.
No, I don't think that either. I think I've made that pretty clear. But like you said, you expect him to score around 16 points a week. I was previously, before the passing game usage, I was saying, okay, like he's going to have to do a lot he's going to have to run for 100 yards if he wants to get 10 points because he was getting used in the passing game. Now I feel a lot more comfortable with his floor if I have him. Before we end this conversation, I have one quick thing to say. One quick question, not necessarily something to say. As we made this pretty clear, you are an owner of all teams.
Every team, actually.
So as someone who is an owner of all teams and also very adamant in calling the New York Jets and New York Giants New Jersey, why don't you rename those teams?
We already sold a lot of merchandise, and like there's a couple old ladies who like don't have a lot of money who bought the jerseys with New York on them. And like, I have a huge heart. Like obviously I have a big mouth, but I have a bigger heart.
Some doctors are honestly concerned about it.
Yeah, they really are. They wonder why and how, but is what it is. So I just like can't bring myself to just like rename them publicly. So I'm just like, sowing the seeds as I go. So, inevitably they will be changed back. Don't worry.
I don't think it can be changed back. I
don't
know that was.
No. The winner rewrites history. That's history.
Okay.
Losers just have to soak in the sadness. It is what it is. Sad reality.
You did bring up Cleveland without OBJ.
Mm-hmm.
I originally wrote down what pass catchers caught your eye, and then I looked at the stats, and I was like, there's really only one guy who had, I guess, like a big game, and it kind of connects a little bit back to Zacchaeus. We apologize greatly to him if he were to ever see this, which we don't imagine that he will. In that Donovan Peoples-Jones did have a big game. A lot of it came off of, I believe, a 60-yard touchdown.
Right.
He only had 3 catches on the day as well, but he does have 12 points in his last 3 games. Is he someone that you're looking at as 1, a waiver claim, and 2, like somebody who can really produce going forward?
He had 3 targets for 2 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Not buying into it yet. So statistically speaking, Baker does play better without Odell, and Baker plays a lot better in the month of November than almost every other month. He's, I think, 9-3 now in November compared to whatever losing record he has in almost every other month. So no, not really buying into it too much. Obviously, they're going to need people to catch the ball. Jarvis had somewhat of a down day. He only had 5 targets on the day, which I think is a down day for Jarvis owners. And obviously, if you played him and he went 3 for 5, 11 yards, you're not really happy about it. But I'm not buying into the hype on DPJ. He had a great game, 16 points, really good. But I'm just not buying into it yet. He was super big play dependent. So I guess if you're going for big play potential people, like if you have an Amari Cooper or a Tyler Lockett, then sure, throw DPJ in there for the month of November. I think that's a good bet to have. But I'm not super confident in him going forward.
I would look at him as a waiver ad. I would think it would be different if he hadn't been a big play guy like all year. That's kind of been his role.
Right.
And now, especially with Odell gone, I think he is just going to be that down the field weapon. That's kind of where he's going to be used. And I don't think you have to worry about too many guys getting in his way.
No.
As far as that role goes, obviously Jarvis is a little bit more in the shorter area of the field.
Right.
So I think he has that role pretty clamped down. Obviously, we would love to see a little bit more target share, maybe like 6 targets, 5 to 6 targets. But that's also the thing. Like, you don't need 10 targets from him because his catches are going to be for, what is he averaging? He's averaging 20.9 yards a catch. And I get that he doesn't have the most catches, but if he can average 15 plus yards a catch, like, he's not necessarily a Hunter Renfrow, Sterling Shepard, where you're looking for that crazy volume for him to be productive.
Right.
I don't know that you're going to use him consistently ever, but I think he's worth a waiver ad just to monitor and see how it goes, because obviously this passing game is pretty wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not someone I'm like jumping to get, but I understand where you are coming from and saying to pick him up.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where he ends up on our show tomorrow. So make sure to tune in for that for our waiver discussion. A little tease. Denver over Dallas. This was obviously one of the probably many big upsets on the day. We could talk about the Cowboys, but this is kind of a thing that I had for a lot of these games. I think one of the things that we try to do and try to talk about is the stuff that is going to project into the future and not necessarily the stuff that just happened and we don't expect to happen again. I don't know that I expect this Dallas offense to look this bad most times. Is there anything from this Dallas offense that you thought was particularly poignant?
I just said, who is Malik Turner? Followed by 3 question marks, 2 exclamation points, and a smiley face. The second game, and he gets, finds the end zone twice. I was like, how is he getting the looks down there when you have such talent? So maybe he's an interesting guy going forward, I think.
But 7 targets.
Yeah, I mean, 7 targets is huge for a team that has Elliott, Schultz, Cooper, Pollard, Lamb, Amar. You have options over there, and this guy was like, "I'll just take 7, Dak, and give it to me twice." So I was like, "What the heck is this? What's going on?" But yeah, their offense is like dismal. Apparently, Denver does a lot better without Von Miller. So hey, who knew? I guess anyone who made a trade won, so that's always good news. Trade Von Miller, you win the game. Get rid of Odell, win the game. I think Vikings should get rid of Kirk Cousins, win the game. I don't know. Who knows? Who am I to say?
I mean, you have the analysis or you have the data that suggests your claim. So I would back you on that. Yeah, I don't really have much for Dallas. I think that is a good point. I don't know if it's like pick up Malik Turner, but it's just concerning for the other guys, perhaps.
Right.
As for Denver, a lot of good things, but I think one of the bad things, and I want to I say this with the utmost hole in my heart and sadness, that it seems like we lost a good soldier that being Courtland Sutton. He was 2 for 40 last week and 1 for 9 this week since Jerry Jeudy returned. And we talked about it a little bit when Jeudy was coming back. And I said I wasn't necessarily worried about Jeudy taking anything away from him just because plays in a different area of the field. But I was more worried that the looks that him and Tim Patrick get, who play similar roles, are going to be cut down. And I think that is what's happened here. And they haven't necessarily looked Sutton's way over Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick's outperformed him both of these last 2 weeks, 3 for 64 in week 8, and then 4 for 85 and a touchdown this week. What do you do with Courtland Sutton? You can't play him.
I don't know. My question I wrote for the game is, what do you make of this wideout situation? So I'm with you. Not quite sure. They're playing Philly this week and then they have a bye week. So I guess I'm hopeful that Philly, after the Philly game, they go into the bye week and they sit everyone down and they're like, hey, how do we get him the ball? He was killing it for us, and Jerry Jeudy was out. How do we get you back to being productive? And maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's legitimately just out there as a ploy right now. He could be. I mean, obviously they won the game, so seems to be working. But I don't know. I do not know what to do with Courtland Sutton. You hold on to him for sure. You don't drop him. You're going to get low ball offers for Courtland Sutton, and you can probably low ball offer other people for him. And depending on how your team is, either trade him or don't. But I think you kind of hold on to Courtland Sutton in hopes that they figure it back out. But it's a risky thing to do.
I have an idea, a potential trade for you. You could trade Courtland Sutton for Odell. Would you do it? It's an interesting one.
I mean, sure. I mean, as of this recording, we don't know where Odell is going. So
correct.
I'd do it. I think. I mean, if Odell goes to the Broncos, I think I'm gonna lose my mind.
I don't think that's happening. We have heard some favorites as far as that is concerned. There have been the Seahawks, Niners, and Saints have been the 3 teams that are reported favorites of where Odell wants to go. Now, does he have a say in that is still to be determined.
If he doesn't get picked up by waivers, he has full say over where he goes, which would be interesting because I think he would take a veterans minimum for a 1-year deal just to show he's got still.
But it's wild if he's considering the Seahawks for that.
I mean, is it though?
To be the 3rd wide receiver?
He would be
an interesting idea.
He would be the number 2 at minimum.
Interesting. I do not think he would be the number 2.
It's DK's team. I've been saying this for a while. Even when Lockett looked hot, I said, just wait till DK gets here. DK finally came. Look at Lockett taking us, 3rd row seat back here. Odell has more talent than Lockett, and I think he's craftier than Lockett. So Odell would be the number 2. And when Russell Wilson comes back in a couple weeks.
This week.
Oh, it is this week? Oh,
it's been reported that he will be back this week.
Oh, thank God. Aaron Rodgers is next week, I believe, right? Because he's still
maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, we have to wait till Saturday, I think, for Aaron Rodgers. But anyway, I think Russell Wilson would just be like, hey, how about I just toss you the ball 8 times and you don't say a single word?
I hope you are correct. But for the sake of this discussion,
I'm taking Odell.
To get back on topic, you would trade.
I would gladly get Odell onto my team.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. That's a potential offer you could throw out there. I think that I don't know if everyone would take it, but I think it's one that is fairly realistic as it could get, realistic and optimistic as it could get for Sutton owners. Moving on to New England at Carolina. New England with a big win here. Watching this game, I'm like, New England's going to screw around and win that division, and it's very scary for anybody whose team is in the AFC. Big thing here, as I stall to check out my notes, CMC came back.
He wasn't playing.
He didn't have the biggest game.
No.
But he still had 14.6 fantasy points.
Right.
And so it was very good week for most. Bad week for CMC. 14 for 52, 4 for 54.
Mm-hmm.
I am very encouraged to see him go play the whole game and not get hurt is awesome. We haven't seen that in a minute.
Right.
And I think that some people who have CMC might not feel as great about it just with all that they've been through.
I think having a almost a 15-point game from a guy who's been injured for forever now, coming back, playing through it, and to have him put up, I think a top 15 week, I think that's encouraging. I think you're fine. CMC is obviously one of my favorites moving forward.
Where would you rank him going forward, for rest of the season running backs?
Number one.
Really?
Number one, number two. I mean, we saw Sam look good for a couple weeks, and we saw Chuba Hubbard look good for 3 downs total, maybe 3 lucky plays, as I like to call it. So yeah, it's going to be his team. He's going to take it right back. And I mean, Derrick Henry's out. There goes a big competition. Alvin Kamara is going to be tough competition up there too. Same with Dalvin Cook. But I think CMC, coming back from injury, catching 4 balls and running it for 54 yards is just super encouraging, and running it 14 times. Hard not to feel real good about CMC moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's CMC, so you're never going to feel bad about it.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people who are still worried about the injury risk with him. I don't think that's ever going to go. I think it might be, depending on, and you will probably know this better than us, depending on the person in your league that has CMC and knowing their feelings about it. I think the opinions on him are pretty spread out. In the league that we are in together, knowing the CMC owner, I don't think they are super pumped about where he is or what he's had to deal with this year. So I think just even in a very dumb way, people who are just fed up with having to put up with CMC, if you could trade, if you wanted to trade a Kamara or something like that and get CMC, I think the option is there. I don't think CMC is necessarily untouchable.
I'm not with you all the way, especially if there's still rumors that Hill could become the quarterback for the Saints. It wasn't completely squashed, even though Simeon was out there most of the game. So the fact, just seeing the track record of Kamara just being pushed down a little bit in terms of fantasy numbers when Hill's out there, is just kind of why I'm I'll take CMC gladly over Kamara.
Oh, I would too. I'm just saying that I think there are some people out there that would part ways with CMC and not view him as the number one back, which he very well still is in the conversation for.
Yeah. Like I said, there's different types of leagues out there. So anything is possible depending on the level of league that you're playing in.
Just depending on people's personal preference too. I don't think that it's I don't think it's crazy to not believe in Christian McCaffrey to stay healthy.
I think it's I don't think it's crazy to think he's gonna get hurt again. I just think like the risk is there of everyone. Like you're in the NFL. Like you're getting tackled by 320-pound behemoths out there who are trying to hurt you. Like it's just the name of the game. Like they're out there, they're trying to get the ball, they're trying to rip at anything they can grab. They're grabbing your ankles, they're laying on your ankle. You got your foot up bent like this, your knee's gonna get bent sideways. Like, I mean, shit happens out there. It's just is how it is. And I mean, yeah, CMC's kind of run into some bad luck of the past couple seasons, but like Derrick Henry was untouchable, like for the past couple years. Now he goes down with season-end injury. And like I think that fact of like anyone can get hurt doesn't mean Kamara is not going to be touched, especially when like they're just constantly giving him all this work to do. So
They lightened it a little bit with Ingram, but I agree. No, I think that you are right. I'm just thinking that there are some people who see the injury history and say,
right.
"Oh, this guy's a little bit more injury prone. I didn't expect him to be out this entire year. I'm kind of like pissed that I haven't had him for the last few weeks, and now he's only putting up like pedestrian good running back numbers."
He put up a top 15 week.
I'm not saying that that's my opinion. I'm
No,
saying that I
I'm
think
saying
that
I'm
some
not
people
saying
could
I'm
have
not saying
that
this
bitter.
at you. I'm not saying this at you. I'm saying this at whoever's listening and being like having that thought in their head of like, oh man, CMC's ass. Like, nah, CMC's really good. Gonna finish as at minimum top 5 back this year, rest of the season. Like CMC has been injury like crippled the past 2 seasons a little bit, but like chin up, have some faith. If you can't handle someone getting injured, don't play fantasy football. Like if you had a perfect season.
Well, I mean, you can still play fantasy football.
No,
And
just
we are
quit.
not ones to tell you what you can or cannot do.
I mean, that's the difference. I told you. I'll tell you how it is.
I am not one to
Yeah, you're not.
What you can or cannot do.
I'll tell you what you can't do.
Moving on to
rough game.
Tough one to talk about.
Rough game.
Minnesota at Baltimore. You should tell the Vikings to win.
I did. And,
that would be a pretty good idea.
Well, I told him. I called Kirk up before the game. I said, "Hey, Kirk, I'm going to need a big W here." He said, "I'll do what I can." And I said, "No, Kirk, don't do what you can. Do what I need you to do." And he played like pretty good for the first half. He did what he could, and then second half he was like, "Hey, the sideline hasn't caught a pass all day. I'm gonna just throw the ball out of bounds 15 times in a row." So just tough day.
Trying to get everyone involved.
I mean, defense looked good for Minnesota for the first half. Slowed Baltimore down wicked, and then they just were like, "Hey, you know what? We stopped him for a little bit, coach. We're tired. He's fast. We just don't care, I guess." And then they just stopped playing. So it's always disappointing to see when your team kind of gives up on defense, especially in a game that we could have won. But hey, it is what it is. It is what it is.
I want to talk about this Ravens offense and particularly Marquise Hollywood Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were not very high on him on the year, even after he showed us some things early on. He went 9 for 116, 20.6.
Right.
Has two games under 19 fantasy points in full PPR. He's also the wide receiver 6 on the season. Are we not putting like enough respect on Hollywood Brown's name in fantasy football?
I don't know. I mean, Minnesota, they're my team. I'll talk down on them right now. Defense is ranked 27th in the league in terms of points towards fantasy receivers. So that kind of is just what I expect. If you look at their schedule, what pass defense kind of scares you, though? They played the Raiders, the Chiefs, Detroit, Denver, Indy, Chargers, and Cincinnati. And like a lot of those teams are towards the back half of the league in terms of, points to the wide receiver here. I'm not like, I don't know. Chargers, I think, are probably their toughest, and that was his worst game. Like, he had a good game against the Raiders, but he, got a touchdown that kind of helps your numbers a little bit. So like some of these games are just against defenses who give up a lot of points to wide receivers. So that's just kind of where my lack of like swooning over Marquise Brown is coming from. Like I think
it's been more for both of us, more than just a lack of swooning. I think
I don't think he's going to finish as this high.
I don't think either of us had him in our top 15.
No. I think he's going to finish as a wide receiver too. Like he's a good wide receiver too. I just don't think he's proven both of us wrong right now, which is good if you're a Brown owner. So I mean, congratulations, but like they've really only played like maybe 2 or 3 defenses who kind of are scary. Not even scary like in the crazy terms, just like had a couple good weeks, and like in those games he had one good week, one bad week. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, like Vegas, you kind of mentioned most of the defenses that are the big concerns. Vegas, Denver.
Denver Denver played some really easy teams though this year, and like
they also played the Cowboys.
I mean, they
just shut down the wide receivers.
Okay, and the Jets beat the Tennessee Titans. I mean, are we saying the Jets are...
Yeah, but the Jets played the Tennessee Titans without any of their wide receivers. I don't think one thing being random makes the other thing very random. I think Denver is a pretty good pass defense. They're ranked 8th in pass yards allowed. And they just shut down one of the most unstoppable defenses or offenses in football. I would say that that's respectable. I mean, I think Marquise Brown is utilized very well in this offense and will continue to see looks, because if you watch that game, a lot of the passes that he was getting were looks where it's give it to Hollywood Brown and let him do something.
Right.
They're a good chunk of those passes are just schemed up for him to get involved. So this offense knows that they need to get him involved. They need to get him touches. Kind of I'm not saying that he is Tyreek Hill, but in that way that he's just such an explosive athlete that you need to just get the ball in his hands. So I could see them doing that, which is not me saying that he's going to be necessarily a top 6 wide receiver the rest of the way, or even a wide receiver 1, but I don't know that I would be looking to sell high unless I get something wild.
Yeah, I guess that's just where me and you separate. I'm not sold on Brown. I mean, if he finishes great this year, congratulations. I always like to see people do well. But he's one of those guys who's if he finishes good, he can do it on someone else's team. I think regression is going to come hit him. He is the number 1 guy on their team by a long shot. He wasn't even my takeaway for the game. But
who did you go with?
I said, it was a question for you. I said, every running back 8, but a certain guy who was healthy. But one guy. I said, what do you make of this cluster in the backfield out here?
In Baltimore, I presume.
In Baltimore, with Freeman. Yeah, with Baltimore.
Yeah, that was my other point for this game as well. Freeman and Bell both with over 10 points. Both
Freeman, Bell, and Picard. Picard also got
Ricard. Well, I'm not that worried about Ricard. I'm not picking him up.
I mean, it's not for fancy. I don't think you start him, but I feel the fact that he is out there doing stuff has to be that's what I mean. The guy who
I would agree.
The guy who did nothing was T. Williams. T. Williams was a guy everyone was going after. Wasn't T. Williams supposed to be the lead back this year?
I mean, the first 2 weeks you were hoping for it, but
right. But I mean,
since then, he's only rostered in 10% or 11% of weeks right now. So I think people were pretty cooled off on that by this point. I think people are pretty cooled off on this backfield in general at this point, and I would kind of say I want to stay as far away as I can if I have any say over it. Now, does that mean you don't pick up Devontae Freeman? Not necessarily, because if he has another good week, he's coming off of 3 weeks where he had double digits. he has had 3 touchdowns in that span. But if he has another good week against a Miami team that has not been very good this year, and you can get rid of him for something that is valuable or is just a fantasy asset outside of this backfield, then I think it is well worth having him on your team. Not necessarily to use, but to trade as just capital.
Were you encouraged by Le'Veon's day?
No.
Oh, okay. I mean, I was just wondering. The guy had 11 carries, almost 50 yards. Didn't know if you had a name value trade because I know you're a big name guy.
Not really. Like, I wouldn't even pick up Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Because we're going to get Latavius back, and that's going to just kind of be a cluster. Anyway, it's like an even bigger cluster than it already is. Anyway, moving on to shocker of the day.
Oh, my God. This game.
Urban. Urban just has a way about him. This kind of like, I don't know, this kind of gritty charm. Where he'll just swoon up behind you. You won't even know he's there.
Oh, my God. You are just roasting this poor man for not even doing anything.
What do you mean?
He didn't even do anything wrong.
I didn't say he did anything wrong. He earned a good win. I'm happy for him.
You say he's swooning on in.
Yeah, he did. The Buffalo, I bet Buffalo didn't even expect him to be there.
You're doing something.
What am I doing?
You're doing something. I don't know. I just think you should come out and tell the fans here.
I'm just saying. Urban Meyer earned another just like gritty, close win. Very close.
What was that body movement, kind of?
What body movement? I think you're reading into this too much, man. I'm just trying to explain what happened here.
I think Urban Meyer just needs to go out in every game thinking that he's playing the Buffalo Bills, the best team out there. And that might actually be how he can get some wins underneath his belt here.
I think there's plenty of things underneath Urban's belt, and most of those things are the 2 wins so far. So, obviously, this is another game like the Denver game. The only thing I wrote down is I don't know what to talk about because I don't know what about this game is a predictor of the future. Like, I don't know that the Jags play this good a defense, and I don't know that the Bills ever struggle this much. I think the big thing here is potentially not necessarily like any particular player fantasy-wise that I'm worried about, but the Bills' offense just isn't unbeatable. We've kind of seen them struggle. We saw them struggle a little bit last week as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're just not necessarily this behemoth offense that's going to have every week just consistent unreal fantasy numbers. And I think most weeks they're going to have good fantasy numbers, but this isn't a team that's just unbeatable every week. You're like, oh, awesome, I can put out a bunch of these guys. It's Diggs and then maybe Knox when he's healthy. And then I think everybody else is pretty much up in the air. Well, obviously Josh Allen, you're starting week in and week out as well.
Yeah, I mean, all the wideouts got you double digits, so I think you're fine with that. In terms of Diggs, Beasley, and Sanders being the guys that we talk about. Singletary had a good game. Moss,
depends on, I want to say for the receivers quick, depends on your league though too. For full point PPR.
Well, we're talking full point PPR, so that's just how I
address it. I'm not coming at you. I'm just saying I do want to make that clear because in half point leagues,
mm-hmm.
these guys' days may look a lot worse. A Beasley would have only had 7 points.
Yeah, I mean, he had 33 yards and 8 receptions. I mean, Moss got the head injury, so I think that's what kind of bumps Singletary up a little bit. But I think they were just a little confused a little bit. Maybe Josh Allen just wasn't fully prepared for the game, might have overlooked it a little bit. I mean, if you ever played a sport, you kind of do that with a team that you're supposed to beat. So I don't think you look into it too much. In PPR format, I think you had a decent game for everyone but Josh Allen. And I mean, if you're starting, your Todd Sweeney that you were so high on,
That was 2 weeks ago.
Or your Moss that you're super high on.
I was never high on Moss.
You said you liked him over Singletary. That's all I said. I said I like Singletary more.
I did say that.
I know you did. That's why I said that. But like everyone else besides Josh, I think had a good game as far as like those wideouts. I mean, Cole Beasley's no one's number one, and neither is Sanders. So I think getting double digits from your wide receiver too is always an encouraging week, especially with just how few points people scored this week.
Agreed. Going on to Houston at Miami. The Gaskin roller coaster continues.
It is indeed.
15.7. He had an absolutely disgusting rushing.
What do you mean disgust? What do you mean disgust?
Efficiency day.
I didn't even talk about the touchdown. I was like, what do you mean?
No, he did have a touchdown, but he was 20 for 34 on the ground.
It was indeed.
And was 6 for 23 receiving. Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to say it other than it's every other week, and that's just what's going to happen. Obviously, not having Malcolm Brown there has been he's been the number one benefactor of that.
Right.
But it's every other week. And they play Baltimore next week. Baltimore's not unreal against the run.
Baltimore is currently letting up less than 100 yards a game.
They're good, I would say.
I mean, yeah, I'd say they're good. I think you get more pass. You definitely throw the ball more against Baltimore than anyone else. So, I mean,
so we'll see what he can do. I hope
Baltimore against the run is actually 25th in terms of points to the running back. So
yeah, they're 5th against the run. So I was very wrong there.
I mean, potentially here.
Potentially. Now,
great game for
the sanctity of just like analytics and consistency here, I would love to see Baltimore keep them under 10, but we will see.
I mean, I think that's just favoritism at that point, that you're wishing someone to ill will. Honestly,
I'm not wishing him ill will.
No, I mean, you said
I didn't even mention a will, but now that you mentioned it, Will Fuller is out on Thursday.
They have the Thursday game, right?
Yeah.
That's tough.
So, on the other side of things, Brandon Cooks, who we both thought was going to have a mega day, did not finish number 1 or 2 through 6.
He did not.
He finished with 11.6 fantasy points, 6 for 56 on 13 targets. Tyrod Taylor had like a terrible day.
Yeah.
So I'm not that worried about Brandon Cooks going forward.
No.
Obviously, 13 targets is a lot. So that, if anything, makes me pretty comfortable with this situation being like, okay, he's getting a ton of volume. I'm not that worried.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I'm more of a wide receiver running back sympathizer than I am a QB sympathizer, just because QB gets all the credit if you win the Super Bowl. And I think they should get the blame if they're going to take all the credit. Just fair that way. I was really high on Tyrod coming into the week. I pumped him up, and he disappointed me. Wicked. I mean, you're playing Miami. Not a tough team to beat. It was just rough to watch. And watching him play, he didn't look 100%. So I'll give him that. Like, he didn't look like the Tyrod that we saw week 1 and 2.5 here. So hopefully he can bounce back. They get the bye week this week, obviously. So I think it's going to be even better for him, just to like really heal up a little bit more. And then they're playing Tennessee. I think that's going to be a good game for him to try to show his stuff again. I mean, Tennessee's letting up, 200 something yards through the air every game. So
if you have Tyrod Taylor on your fantasy team, you picked him up for this week's stream at quarterback, are you keeping him through the bye week or no?
No.
Okay.
Well, I feel like if you're streaming quarterback, you're probably need to pick up another quarterback, and you could probably find someone for this week drop that person and pick Tyrod back up again. If you could pick him up once, you could probably pick him up again, especially after the dud of a week he just had. So you don't need to waste a roster spot on him. If you don't need to, if you can afford to keep him there, and like you don't need to pick anyone up, then go for it. But like you don't need to hold on to him. He's not a must hold, not a must hold.
Another guy who I would have that same question for you is Devontae Booker. 15.2 fantasy points this past week. Obviously, with all the stuff that Saquon was going through, there was a chance that he was going to play this week and did not end up playing. They get a bye week next week, and then they come back against Tampa. Are you holding Devontae Booker through the bye next week?
I think so. I mean, when is Saquon supposed to come back?
So there was a chance that he was going to come back for this game, and then obviously the COVID thing just kept him out of practice for the most of the week.
Right.
I would have guessed that it wasn't going to be this week, but next week, and obviously can't be next week. Right. So I would think that we're getting pretty close to seeing Saquon come back. I wouldn't drop him for nothing. If there's somebody out there that you really need, sure, but I'm not dropping him just to clear a spot.
Right. I don't think you do that, especially with how banged up running backs are getting this year. There's one more game. Apparently, that's just a bigger factor than I thought it was going to be with just every big name guy going down so far, which is insane and sad to see from a real football and fantasy football perspective. But I think you hold on to Booker. I mean, he's the handcuff. Booker, if Saquon goes down again, Booker gave you double-digit weeks, week 5 through 9. He gave you 5 weeks of double-digit productivity. I don't think you drop him, and I don't think you definitely don't drop him for nothing.
Would you try to trade him to the Saquon owner?
For sure. I think you can definitely try to swing that. Especially the bye week, you could probably swing someone that you're going to need. And the possibility of Saquon going down again is, I'm going to say high just because of the O-line situation over there. One of the more timid ones. But I don't know. You don't drop him for nothing. I think that's just I mean, you can if you want to lose, but do you? Your league.
Well, no, you can't go back and say do you now.
I can't because at the end of the day, I'm
telling people what to do.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm going to give you my sense, but Booker is not the guy I'm going to die on the hill for. If you want to drop D Booker, you're going to drop D Booker no matter if I come to your house kicking and screaming. So he's not the guy I'm going to die over. Just because he's a New York Giants guy and the Giants. There's only Evan Ingram's the only guy who I have a love-hate relationship with Evan Ingram in fantasy and in real life. It's complicated, but it is what it is. But besides him, only guy that I'm actively thinking you need to keep on your roster. Everyone else I think you can drop or get rid of, and I don't want you to, but if you do, then fine, cool. Is what it is.
Going on to the Raiders real quick. Kenyon Drake had 4 rushes for 30 yards, 6 catches for 70 yards for 16 fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, without Henry Ruggs here, we were looking to see who was going to step up. Could it be Drake moving forward?
I mean, could be. He got 8 targets. So there's a good chance it could be. Waller got 11, Renfrow got 9, and Drake got 8. So
they play Kansas City next week. He has had over 16 points in his last 3 games. Do you play him?
Yeah,
I think it's a very good, a crazy question, but it's hard to put a guy that's just put 16 points up in 3 straight weeks on your bench, especially when he's playing Kansas City defense.
Right. Kansas City lets you throw on them. That's kind of a thing that they like to do. And especially when you're not even the number 1 target on your team. I mean, you have to worry about Waller and you have to worry about Renfrow.
Not even the number 1 running back on this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs is the running back. Kenyon Drake's the receiving back. That's just kind of how it is. And Bryan Edwards just uncharacteristically dud, just like Emmanuel Sanders last week. So I definitely think you play him. There is still, targets all around that you kind of have to be conscientious of here. Be prepared for the fact that Bryan Edwards isn't going to go 0 for 4 every single week, so they're going to try to give him the ball more. So a couple of those touches might go to another direction, but I still think he's a good start in a flex or in a bye week situation this week.
Okay, quick question. One, would you rather start Drake or Edwards?
Who?
Kenyon Drake or Bryan Edwards?
Oh, sorry, Drake.
Drake? Okay. 2, Raiders did just sign Deshaun Jackson, who presumably will take that deep threat role. Is he someone that you're looking at on waivers? He's someone that, to me, I don't know that I'm looking at on waivers yet, but it does lower the value on Bryan Edwards to me to the point where I would probably drop him if I have it.
I don't know if I drop him. It's a tough one. I don't know if you drop Bryan Edwards just yet, because I mean, I don't know. You see Deshaun Jackson isn't the speed demon he once was. He's still insanely fast, but you can't tell me that the Deshaun Jackson from 5 years ago is slower than the Deshaun Jackson now, who is being bounced around the league. I'm not super buying in on it, but I think it worries you a little bit if you are a Edwards owner. But again, you've already seen what Edwards is like with 3 wide receivers out there. So,
I mean, he hasn't done much this year, has he? Though,
he's got double.
What we've seen.
I mean, he's got double digits 3 out of 7 weeks before the bye,
and it's only been 12, 11, and 13. So he's not really giving you, albeit only has 1 touchdown on the year. But he's not giving you any monster weeks that I feel like if you're looking at a bench guy that you are hoping is going to turn into a solid wide receiver for you, you want a guy with high volume or you want a guy with high boom potential. And I'm not sure that Edwards is either of those.
I don't know if he is. He only has 4 red zone targets on the year. Second most for wide receivers, even when Henry Ruggs was there. It's Hunter Renfro's game down in the red zone. That's really why I love Renfro more, but I don't know. Edwards is there's a couple weeks he's going to get you 10 points, which is what you want from a wide receiver. Hard to predict what weeks those are going to be, but he's an interesting guy to keep on your bench if you want to. But again, you can make an argument probably much better for someone else. It's just more of a gut feeling that he might be able to do a couple things.
Fair enough. He might be able to do a couple things.
Exactly. Don't want to give him too much credit, but
keep him humble.
Exactly.
Clippers at the Eagles. Obviously, Mike Williams not doing much to help me out in my standing out for him. Has been doing a lot more, as you could probably tell, for the other side of this two-piece shows argument against him. He went 2 for 58, had 5 targets, has 5 targets in each of the last 3 games. Also single digits. Can you start him against Minnesota next week?
So Minnesota has been – our defense is kind of weak this year, is what it is. Can't do anything about it. Well, we could, but we refuse to. I'm not – you can start him. I think he has a good chance to catch a couple balls. Maybe, get a couple yards too. I'm not doing it with confidence. Like I've been saying for a while now. Been saying it since like week 1 or 2. Get rid of him. Get him off your team. Move it and lose it here. For those who didn't listen to me, congratulations. You could have got a wide receiver 1 earlier on the season. Now you're going to get a wide receiver 2 at best, maybe a wide receiver 3 in a stingier league. He's not doing much for you, and it is what it is. Minnesota could be a good game for him just because the defense is rough over there. Not in a good way. We're like, we're kind of soft on defense over there. It's rough. Rough soft, if you know what I mean.
It's rough because it's so soft.
Exactly. Perfect analogy.
Yeah, I'm starting him next week. I'm obviously a bit more of a fan of Mike Williams. I'm starting to lose that support that I have for him, that he will resurrect this into being a back-end wide receiver 1. But I think against Minnesota, you have to start him, and I'm not like that down on him yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
if he doesn't do well next week, then we run into some real problems with Mike Williams. Jordan Howard was the big running back here from the Eagles because, of course, he was 17 for 71 and a touchdown, 13.1 fantasy points. He was the only Eagles running back with 10 plus, which is, again, obvious because I said I would only start one of them, and it would be Boston Scott.
You did indeed.
And he went for 10 for 40 for 4. And I believe you said your favorite was Kenny Gainwell.
I did.
Went 2 for 3 and had a touchdown for 6 points.
Outscored him, baby. Outscored Scott.
You did.
Did he indeed.
This Sirianni guy is just starting to tick me off.
I think you just get ticked off too easily, but I think sometimes you just got to relax and realize that I know and own every organization. So what I say is going to happen.
Well, I don't know if what you said was – I mean, you said Gainwell over everybody.
Yeah, over everybody.
That didn't happen.
Scott, Sanders, Minshew, Ward, Jackson, Fulgham, everyone.
Fulgham. I think he got waived. I don't think he even plays for the team anymore.
He might not. No, I'm not here to air out his dirty business. All right, business decisions had to be made. Is what is.
I guess.
I was right on D. Smith though, reviving. I didn't say it last week, but I've been high on D. Smith. I don't know if I did.
Right. I didn't say it, but I was right.
Well, no, I don't. Well, I've been saying it for a while.
I
don't. Every week, I don't mention all the people I've been high on for forever. But D. Smith was one of my guys earlier on the season who I said was going to start reviving. 5 for 6, 116 and 1 touchdown.
Yeah,
love to see it.
Did have a good game. Moving on to Green Bay at Kansas City. This is one of our bets for the week. Jordan Love did not have 300 yards passing.
He did not indeed.
It was 19 for 34 with 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and 11.9 fantasy points.
Right.
Also had 5 for 23 on the ground. I saw that you started him.
I did.
So you put your money where your mouth was, at least.
Yeah. I had Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray didn't play this week, and I said, hey, I think Jordan Love has a good chance. Watching him play, everyone was digging into him watching the game. Every announcer was like, he looks timid out there. He looks terrible. And the dude went 5 for 7, 50-something yards, whereas Patty Mahomes was 2 for 8 and 6 yards, and they were praising him. I said, no shit, this guy's not going to do good. You guys are just bashing him on the headset the entire time. I was like, what is this? This is some favoritism if I've ever seen it. I'm ready. I was ready to call for some jobs. I had the phone out, made a couple calls, sent some nasty emails. All right. Not proud of it, but it was what it was. I think he looked okay. He almost had 200 yards. He had that pick, but I mean, everyone has a pick who's thrown the football so far this year for a game. I think he looked okay. Obviously, you want much better from a quarterback than to just look okay. But he was not my takeaway from this game, even though I did start him just for my money.
No, my main takeaway from this game was the other quarterback.
Oh, really?
And Patrick Mahomes.
Nice.
Patrick Mahomes has 7.7, 14, and 10.4 in his last 3 games. And even though 7.7 math-wise is the lowest there, it is getting worse as far as his yardage and his rushing attempts and rushing yards. Like, would you consider, obviously, like, we talked about trading Patrick Mahomes before, but like, would you consider benching Patrick Mahomes at this point?
That's it's so tough because, like, you don't.
That's crazy. It's
like
nuts.
like as soon as you bench Patty Mahomes, he's going to go off for another 35, 40-point game, which he can do. I don't blame you for thinking that. I still have faith in Patty, but it's definitely a conversation now. Whereas like earlier on in the season, it wasn't even like a discussion to be had. Like, do I sit Patty? Like, sure, if you like want to get kicked out the league, but like now it's like, do I sit Patty for Tyrod Taylor? Maybe you might actually do that this week. Like, you don't know. Well, maybe not Tyrod this week.
If it was like these two guys play against each other. If it was like a Derek Carr versus Patrick Mahomes, who would you play? I'd probably play Mahomes, but it's. I mean, the question I think might be a little bit premature, a little bit of the overreaction Mondays.
But I think a little bit of overreaction.
The fact that we have ever brought that up is something to think about. And there's some teams, like, I know some people who drafted a quarterback late in like the last round, maybe. I know someone who has Kyler and Tom Brady in a league. So like, if they were to have Mahomes and either of those guys, or like something like that, then yeah. I mean, if you drafted Brady late or something like that, I'm starting Brady over him, obviously. If you drafted, I think, like, it's hard to go Tannehill, but maybe Tannehill over him.
I don't know if I would go Tannehill just yet, but I mean, so looking at the quarterbacks who are outscoring him, it's Brady, Hurts, Stafford, Jackson, Allen, Patty. Like, Patty's number 6 right now. I don't think Kyler was out for the week, and he's still number 8. So, I mean, super high on Kyler. So, I guess it's kind of tough if you have Kyler, Tom, or Patty to start any of those. I think you're fine, but like, yeah.
What about a Kirk Cousins?
Kirk's too hit or miss for me. Like, as a fan watching, he like some weeks Kirk will go off for you, and he'll get you 28. Then the next week he'll get you 13. So, it's kind of tough. I think Patrick Mahomes is on a team and in a system built around him. Like, you have one of, if not the best, definitely the fastest wide receiver in the league, Tyreek Hill. You have a phenomenal tight end in Travis Kelce. You got a good O-line. You're getting CEH back soon. I think things are going to turn around for him, so I don't think you sit him. But it's definitely like, if you have like a really good quarterback, obviously it's always a discussion and what you do.
What was your takeaway in this game quickly before we move on?
What happened to Aaron Jones?
Yeah, Aaron Jones has really had quite the fall. I mean, he has that one. I mean, in context of what he was expected to be coming into this year, which is a top 8 running back, he's had in PPR a little bit better scoring than in half or like standard leagues, obviously. 24 last week, but like, he's had a couple games, but he hasn't really done anything consistently.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones he started off weak, gave you a monster 41-point bomb, came back down to 17, 10, 14, 21, 8, 24, 5. Definitely a tossy-turny guy back there. I was just wondering if you knew what happened to him.
I do not. I mean, Jordan Love certainly probably had an impact on that and limiting what they were able to do. But I'm surprised that he didn't get the ball, like didn't have any catches in the receiving game. That was very surprising.
I didn't think he was that. I don't think Jordan Love is as inaccurate as everyone was like making him out to be.
He had a lot of misses. He did have a lot of misses, but I don't know if that's him or just obviously Aaron Rodgers gets all of the reps with the top guys.
There was no chemistry between everyone. I think he did fine for zero chemistry. And I mean, Kansas City they're letting up a bunch of yards, but they're not letting up any points to the wide receiver. So it's
nice to see you supporting a young quarterback. It's a very nice change of pace.
I mean, hey, if someone deserves it, I'm always nice to them. If they don't deserve it, then it is what it is.
Speaking of not so young quarterbacks, but maybe some unexperienced quarterbacks, some quarterbacks that deserve a lot of love. It's Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy leading, I think, single-handedly leading this Arizona Cardinals team to a victory over the San Francisco 49ers. There's a petition, speaking about Kansas City, there's a petition online that Patrick Mahomes needs to get benched, and I'm possibly in the works of starting my own petition for Colt McCoy to be the full-time starter in Arizona.
I can't, I know you're kidding, so for the audience's sake, I'll let them know that you're also kidding.
Who's kidding here?
You are definitely kidding. James Conner.
I got 500 words.
Okay.
I just got to wrap it all up, bring it all together. I don't know. You look at him, things were clicking out there. 31 points. San Francisco defense.
It's San Francisco's defense not?
I think we were talking them up for the week.
San Francisco? I didn't mention San Francisco on my defense this week.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just remembering things. Who knows? But I'm writing a petition right now. I can show you 500 words.
All right. I can't even find the 49ers on this list.
Fantasy-wise,
there they are.
James Conner, obviously, with a monster day. He had 3 touchdowns. Chase Edmonds going down with what is feared to be a high ankle sprain. They might have confirmed it. They did confirm it. He is expected to miss 3 to 4 games. Obviously opening things up for James Conner to continue. Maybe not putting up 37 or 40. He put up 40 in
40.3
full point PPR. Maybe not putting up that every week, but should be putting up very good numbers and getting a ton of looks, especially if Kyler isn't to come back. We expect Kyler to come back next week, but I don't know if it's necessarily a lock, and especially if this petition gets signed, we could see Colt McCoy out there all the time. So, number one, if you have James Conner right now, I think there's a bit of a predicament. He's coming off a 40-point game. He's getting the job to himself for probably 3 games.
2 games. 2 games, and then the third week they're on a bye. So I think Chase Edmonds coming back week 4 for the injury because it's just a straight-up bye week. So
okay. So I was going to say probably 3 games, maybe 2.
I'm going with the assumption it's 2 games for him.
I don't. Okay, that's. Do you have that from somewhere, or is that?
That's me. I caught it for Dave Montgomery. I'm calling it right now. So
okay.
I also know that
from Ian Rappaport says 3 to 4. Cody says 2. You guys make your own judgments.
I said he's going to be. No, you said 2 games. What are you talking about? 2 games. I said he's coming back in 4 weeks, but he's only missing 2 games.
Yeah, Ian Rappaport said he should miss 3 to 4 games.
I said 2 games. Week 3.
I did not say anything that you said. I said Ian Rappaport said 3 games, 3 to 4 games. You said 2 games.
You said weeks.
Did I say weeks on accident? I apologize if I did.
Yeah, you
I would say 2 to 3 games. I'll work my way right in the middle there.
He's coming back, I guess. What about D-Hop and AJ Green and Kyler?
You have no idea, or I don't have any idea.
I mean, D-Hop was hammy, Kyler was, I think, ankle, and Green was just because he was sick. So I think with the productivity that those 3 guys bring to the table, definitely not going to be a James Conner 40-point bomb again this year, even in the 2 games that he's going to have the backfield to himself back there. But I think you make the most out of it. I think you try to either sell high, which could potentially be a wide or a running back 2 who would have the backfield mostly to himself, or a wide receiver that you need if you're in need for a wide receiver and you have a bunch of running backs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation. He plays Carolina, but then he plays Seattle.
Right.
So polar ends of matchups there. I would definitely look to see what I can go get. I don't know if people are going to be super, super like into giving something up for him. Like, I don't think you're going to get anything great. I'm looking, and like the highest end that I think you might be able to pull is a Damian Harris, which I don't think you could get, but that's like the first one where it's like, maybe. Maybe like an Antonio Gibson. If you could do that, that might be the answer there. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to be about gauging what the market is for him, and would certainly look to move him if I could. On the other side of things, Brandon Ayuk breakout. We talked about this. 6 for 89, 8 targets, 18.7. He's just back to being a top 24 wide receiver that we expected in draft season, correct?
Exactly.
I don't know if I would go that far yet, but it's certainly encouraging. He's probably out there.
Brandon
Ayuk on
Ayuk,
my waiver column last.
he's out there in 45 point, or he's rostered in 45.5% of leagues.
So definitely going to be one of the top waiver guys next week.
Right.
On to the night game.
We missed a game, didn't we? Oh, no. Never mind. My bad.
Tennessee backfield. Adrian Peterson, 10 for 21, 1 touchdown, 1 catch for 5 yards. Jeremy McNichols, a.k.a. Josh Nichols, 7 for 24, 3 catches for 11 yards. Deontay Foreman, 5 for 29, so 9.6 fantasy points for Peterson, 6.5 for McNichols, 2.9 for Deontay Foreman. Deontay Foreman, at least of what I was able to watch of this game, looked like the most productive running back in that backfield. So I think he's going to be someone that maybe could be a sneaky waiver grab and should earn some more work going forward. What do you make of this backfield?
It's going to be by committee. Kind of what I was a little afraid of with Tennessee. I know that they have always had Derrick Henry, so obviously you don't need to have a split backfield when you have arguably the best running back almost to walk the earth. But yeah, the split was 45, 33, 21% for the 3 guys, with Nichols leading the charge with 45% of the downs played. It's by committee. Adrian Peterson was blessed with a touchdown. Otherwise, his day is 3.6 points. So that is what it is.
If you have Adrian Peterson, try to trade him immediately.
Yeah, I mean, Nichols is the guy who is going to catch more passes. It definitely looks that way. And maybe I think he's going to get it going on the ground. I don't think he's an inefficient runner. And I think the O-line is good enough to create a hole for him to pop through. I still like Nichols as the guy. If I am going to boldly proclaim someone, it's going to be Nichols.
I think there's a chance Deontay Foreman wins the early downs. I don't think it's necessarily the most likely. I could see it being like this for a good chunk longer. But with the way that he was running, I think, looked by far the best running the football anyway. So
no doubt.
I think if I was going to stake my claim on one of these guys as the top running guy, it would be him. Obviously, McNichols is going to be your third down guy. I don't know that I would love to be invested in any of the people in this backfield, though. I would probably take Deontay Foreman because he's the lowest that I would have to invest. McNichols is already on a team, are already like rostered in most leagues, I would say. As is Adrian Peterson, both rostered in over 50% of leagues. I'm not looking to trade for either of them, but if I could add Deontay Foreman or something like that and not really have to invest a lot into them or into him as a fantasy asset, I would be okay with that. Last thing we have to talk about. Should we do that? We'll do this because we never do the game thing.
Yeah, we never end up doing the games.
So
no, we're really good at it. We're really good.
Chicago at Pittsburgh, obviously one of the best fantasy quarterbacks of a lot of people would say like the past is the past, but like I would say the far past is the far past. And really like within the last week is the only thing that matters as far as the past goes. And I would say like if you going by that logic, Justin Fields is one of the best quarterbacks in the past. Has been one of the best quarterbacks, I suppose, is a better way to put that. In fantasy football, especially. He ran for 100 yards last week. I have very high hopes for him. I don't know about high expectations, but high hopes, because he was on my bold predictions list as, I think, just top 5. It might have been higher than that.
You said bold predictions was Jay Fields top 5 week.
Yep. So,
I mean, that's kind of, hey, I'm not a Justin Fields supporter as of yet, just because of how porous he's looked. But I mean, top 5 this week is literally just 25 points. Actually, technically, it's 24 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. 24.19 points. Insanely reasonable if you just don't throw the ball the entire time and just run it, which seems to be his only strong suit. So,
well, no, let's not try to turn this into a negative Justin Fields thing, as you were prone to do. I don't blame you for it. It's just like part of your blood. It maybe was handed down over the years. Justin Fields just not somebody that like, I guess it's ingrained in you to like. And if you can't fight that, then that's okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm not starting him, but hopefully Justin Fields can do something. And if he can run for a ton this week, like he's going to be somebody on waivers that may be an interesting pickup. If he can show that he can consistently run for like 50 yards a game. Yeah. Because that just the value of a fantasy quarterback that can run. On the other side of things, Chase Claypool, I think, is an interesting name here. Obviously, you're starting Deontay Johnson. You're starting Najee Harris. Chase Claypool is the person that it gets interesting with. I would say there's 2 people for that team that it gets very interesting with, and that is Chase Claypool and Pat Freiermuth. Chase Claypool has not necessarily been the most productive stepping in since Juju got hurt. A lot of people, including myself, expected him to be more productive than he has been. Is this a game where he shows us I can be a consistent fantasy wide receiver?
Claypool, maybe. It's tough to, fully go in after him here, just because it's a Monday game. You already, you kind of have to at this point. I mean, you're not starting any of the Chicago wide receivers this week. So if you have a spot open, you kind of have to play him. So at this point, the decision's made for you. You either take the 0 and don't play him, or you risk a potential. Or I mean, I guess you have to play him no matter what. Like he's not going to get you worse than 0 points. So you play him because you have to. I'm not super high on Claypool as of yet, but I like to see him play against Chicago. Just see how he does. If he has like a little revival, like a nice double-digit week, I'll look back into him. But
what about the youth?
No. If you waited this long to start tight end, don't feel bad for you. With Pat
well,
Fry.
We got to talk about the game, and we couldn't. Our shows would be 10 hours if we tried to talk about Monday Night Football game in it as well.
I just don't like. in all honesty, like Chicago has a good defense against tight ends. So like I don't feel bad if you like waited to start him. I don't blame you for starting him. I wasn't going to anyway. He's not one of my guys, but I don't blame you for like thinking like, oh, Pittsburgh has a lot of weapons out there. We have Johnson, Harris, Claypool, certain days. Tight end might be able to slip in, get a couple passes, get a couple easy yards. I don't blame you for thinking that, but Chicago is decent against the tight end this year. So that's just why I'm not high on him. It's tough.
I would go with Freiermuth. I would be happy with it if I had him.
I think
I'm not sure like that he's going to be a guy that in the future I'm like super pumped about all the time, but it seems like he's got a little bit of a trend going in his direction. Ebron out again this week, so I will be fine with playing him.
Right.
Getting into questions now. Second take extra. I forgot about this one. Told you Damian Harris. The bet was Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs over Josh McNichols.
Got to take it on the chin. I was wrong.
We never. Now I had to pony up if the Colts were to lose to the Jets, but you did not have to wager anything on these.
Well, that's because you took a side on this one too. He was just agreeing with you when you said it.
Well, yeah, but I also like got these right, and I get no reward, nor do you get a punishment for getting them wrong. Just an observation. Now, am I saying that should be
I got a haircut for you. I had to get a haircut. You texted me saying I need to get a haircut, and I got one. That was the punishment.
Why? How does it benefit me that you get a haircut? Now
I just spend my hard-earned money
of the show.
Had to get my hard-earned money into this haircut.
Yeah, but that doesn't do anything for me.
You get to see my beautiful face now.
Up 43.08. And I can. Playing Najee and Claypool. I think playing against Najee and Claypool.
That's what I assume.
I would say you're probably safe.
If you're not safe, that's insane. That means both have to drop a 20 bomb. I don't think so.
Josh Allen sacked, picked, and made Josh Allen fumble.
He did indeed.
That was a thing that the broadcast absolutely loved. Now, everybody was talking about this and being like, I think it was crazy how much people like care that these guys had the same name. I think the biggest thing about this that was wild to me is that Josh Allen on the Jaguars just doesn't have a middle name. Just did not give him one, which is like, I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but I'm just thinking it's interesting that like, whoa, like it kind of just shot me out of my own perspective. Being someone who's always had a middle name for the past 23 years, being that's like, wow, someone cannot have a middle name. It just made me kind of think outside of myself for a minute and be like, wow, this world with all the diversity out here, we have people with no middle names.
Yeah,
I could have got D-Hop and Mike Davis for DJ Moore and Javonte Williams, and I said, no, that is smart. We just got a hello from Michael.
Howdy.
Hello, Michael. Big Rangers fan.
Hey, nothing wrong with a little field hockey.
I suppose. Do I trade Stephon Diggs and Kyle Pitts for Saquon Barkley, Terry McLaurin, and Dalton Schultz? I have no flex.
You have Stephon.
I would do that.
You have Stephon and Kyle, I assume, right? I would do it. That's a great trade.
I would do that. I'm not a big Kyle Pitts guy. I've been pretty vocal on that.
Yeah. I mean, but I think Dalton Schultz is a nice guy to have. He's getting rid of Pitts though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not a big Pitts guy. I feel like if you are, then you wouldn't like be as keen to do that. But I think you get a running back, which is huge. Like running back's just hard to get.
Right.
You get Terry, who I don't think is bad. I think Terry's like a wide receiver too.
Right.
And you get Dalton Schultz, who's a startable tight end.
Exactly. I think you're fine.
I'm up 39. You got Claypool, A-Rob, and I got Pitts defense.
You win.
You win. I would hope so. Over under 39.5 for tonight.
Over. No, under. I'll take it under.
I'm also I gotta go over.
I wanted you to take the over anyway.
I don't know.
I'm not feeling good about it, but
I don't know that I feel good about it. Anything. Just in general. What team is OBJ going to? So the favorites are out there of New Orleans, Seattle, and San Francisco. I am thinking that I think it's going to be New England, New Orleans, or Seattle would be my three. If I had to pick one, I think it's going to be Seattle, but I really don't want it to be.
I like Seattle a lot. He will be the number 2. Kind of, we kind of disagree on a little bit. He thinks Tyler Lockett's a much better wide receiver than OBJ.
I don't think he's better. I just think the chemistry there is already built up.
Russell Wilson is going to like foam at the mouth with excitement for having the opportunity to pass to just the Greek god and DK Metcalf, who is unmovable in the wide receiver form. And then one of, if not the craftiest wide receivers who can get open, he can get open in an elevator. The dude's just insane, makes insane catches. And Russell Wilson's a pretty accurate quarterback, and he can run it too. So I really like Seahawks. I don't like New Orleans as much. I just think like the quarterback situation is a downgrade from Baker. I don't love Baker, but I think it's a downgrade still. And if you go to San Francisco, just Jimmy G's a good option, but if as soon as they're like, hey, Trey Lance is in, I think you're going to have the same problem that you did in Cleveland. That's just why out of the favorites, I'm really loving Seattle.
Interesting. Metcalf, it's an English name. Not Greek.
I miss is how he throws people off the trail. I mean, if he was literally said, hey, I am from Greece, then people are going to be like, hey, this guy might be a god, just coming to play football and collect my paycheck. So, he has to change it to England because no one's ever like, hey,
English god.
Yeah, no one ever thinks that.
Should I still roster Taysom Hill? I don't think it's like a terrible idea. Depends who you're going to pick up.
I don't even think you need to pick anyone up. Drop him. Get rid of him.
Interesting.
What's Taysom Hill going to get you? 3 points a week?
If he's starting quarterback, he's going to get you much more. The Manning curse is I don't know if it's curse is what I don't know if I would call it a curse particularly. I think it's more that like the Mannings in their career won a lot of games. And now like I think they're winning games off the field as well. Like I don't think it's as much the players that they're having on like losing as much as the Mannings winning, if that makes sense.
I don't know if it's as much of a curse as the Madden curse. I think the Madden curse is much worse. I don't know. I mean, yeah, obviously everyone that they've had on their show has lost, so that kind of sucks. But at least it's not bringing down the entire team. Just one guy.
I mean, that guy is losing for the entire team, but I guess that I can see where you're coming from.
For fantasy purposes, though, I mean, all the other guys on Josh Allen's team got 10-plus points. Great day.
I know. Can get Baker or Jimmy G in place of Taysom because I need a quarterback for week 11.
Jimmy G, baby.
I would stay with Taysom. If it's not next week, I would rather have Taysom unless these quarterbacks are just going to go and get picked up before then. I think Taysom could potentially be the starter by week 11.
I am less optimistic.
If he's not, I still think you could get these guys by then.
I mean, Saints did play the Falcons, so I mean, it's not like the toughest competition. But like they won the game. It was a good game.
They did not win the game.
No, they won it in my head though. Like in my head, they won the game. So, like we're fine. But like watching the game, I don't know. I think everyone needs like a week to grow. Like two weeks, I think you're like getting it in your system. By week 3, I think you're like, hey, this is how the team operates now. They're all professionals. Like they all kind of know. And they're not bringing in new people unless they bring in OBJ, obviously. But I think they're fine.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Second take extra. If he wins this week, he is in first.
Kondo said he will shave a number 1 on the side of his head if you win.
Number 1 on the fan power rankings, and number 1 in the league. That's just what we do.
Yeah, we create winners out here.
That's the only one. Need Claypool and Najee under 43. Well, we're praying for you. Second take extra. We're praying to everybody from regular gods. Maybe I don't know if there's a regular god.
I don't think we can go on this conversation. Yeah. I think we just got to end it right here.
Any kind of god, whether it be the Greek gods, the DK Metcalfs of the world, who is the English god, anyone that can help you out here.
Right.
So that is it for our show today. And we will be back tomorrow with our waiver discussion and a recap of this game as well. We will see you all then.